Yo, what up? Josh Rubin from East West Healing Performance. Today, I want to talk about fruits are your friend. Now, of course, we're going to be talking about carbohydrates in there, and I don't want you to think that I'm just recommending you eat fruit. Of course, you need the right types of non-inflammatory proteins and fats in your diet. But I want to talk about fruits today because I feel like, so many people are afraid of carbohydrates, and it really makes no sense to me. If you really understand human physiology, which was what I study, I don't study dysfunction. I don't study adrenal fatigue. I don't study parasite infections. I study normal physiology in the body because the more you understand function, the more you're going to actually understand dysfunction when it happens instead of going backwards. Just like a lot of people say, well, uric acid is horrible. It causes gout. Rah, 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 rah. High cholesterol is bad. It's gonna make you die. It's gonna cause heart disease. Rah, 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 rah. Well, there's no research to even show it. Cortisol is bad. Estrogen's bad. Everything's bad. Well, fucking just shoot yourself and just die while you're at it. The bottom line is all this stuff is in us. We need this stuff. Now, I know I talk about this stuff as being bad, and I know I'm getting a little worked up, so I'm going to quiet down. But at the same time, our body produces uric acid. It's the major antioxidant in our body, and fructose actually helps to produce it. And we produce it for a specific reason, and when it's actually high and out of balance, it's your body actually telling you something. Same thing with high cholesterol. I've talked about this. High cholesterol, beside being actually a marker for hypothyroidism, what happens when you're stressed? Well, you need to produce more steroidal hormones so your body can fight the stress. What do you produce more of? Cholesterol. It's normal in the body. Too much of it can, quote unquote, if you're not converting it, be an issue. But at the same time, it's one of the major antioxidants in your body. Cortisol, estrogen, these things are actually in your body for a specific reason at a homeostatic level. And when the ratios to the other hormones are balanced, they're actually not damaging. But when in excess, they're actually quite inflammatory. But if you understand their physiology, then you'll understand when they're excess, actually how to bring it down. And not just say, well, you have adrenal fatigue. You have this syndrome. And you start treating people with supplements, and you start diagnosing people and playing doctor. Even you're doing holistic medicine, you're just doing greeniopathy. And it's just not working. So you can hear my frustration. So let's get back to what we're going to talk about. I got a lot of notes. Now, we have different types of sugars. Now, of course, this is YouTube, and everyone says, you didn't say this, and you didn't say that, and it's a 10-minute YouTube, and I don't want to talk for 30 minutes, even though I could. It's YouTube. There's a couple types of sugar. You have monosaccharides, which is glucose, fructose, things like that. These are directly absorbed into the blood and converted into glucose in the liver and the small intestine. You have disaccharides like lactose, which is galactose and glucose, and you have sucrose, which is fructose and glucose, which is in so many different foods. And this is where I get even more frustrated. You can hear the pitch of my voice go up. Because everyone says sucrose is bad. You have McCullen saying sucrose is bad. You have Lustig saying sucrose is bad. And they're doing research on Pop-Tarts, Coke, Ding-Dings, and Dong-Dongs, and Twinkies. Well, no shit that stuff is bad for us. No crap that stuff causes disease. What else is in these products? You see sucrose, the first ingredient. Maybe there's even sucrose in it. Usually there's high fructose corn syrup, maltose, dextrose, all these other oses that really the body doesn't recognize. And there's about 50 other ingredients. You got green, blue, red dyes. You got sunflower oil, vegetable oils. You got whey. You got wheat. GMO products, soy lettuce. I can't even pronounce this stuff. 50 ingredients, and they pick sugar. They pick sugar. I don't know about you, and I'm not sitting here and saying, go start to eat tons of sugar. I'm just saying, don't believe everything you hear, because don't believe everything I'm saying either. Go research it. They're doing research on Pop-Tarts and saying it causes diabetes because of the sucrose. Come on, are you kidding me? Talk about incomplete, non-reliable research. Because sucrose, eat a beet. Beet is sucrose. Eat root vegetables. Root vegetables have sucrose. Eat fruits. Fruits have sucrose. And everyone's telling you that sucrose is bad, and they're brainwashing you to believe that sucrose is just table sugar. And then you have all these people that come to me and say, I don't want to eat carbs, I don't want to eat fruit because they make you fat, and they cause diabetes, and yada, yada, yada. I need to eat paleo, I need to cut carbs out and eat low carbs because I don't want to get diabetes, I don't want to get osteoporosis, I don't want to get all these diseases that Dr. Oz, the doctors, Oprah, and all these silly shows on TV are actually telling people that carbohydrates are bad. Now, I'm going to slow it down a bit, but if you think about it, as I've talked about, glucose is your body's primary source of fuel. It's your cells, your central nervous system. It's your primary source of fuel to actually produce energy. So why would you cut it out? That'd be like saying, well, I'm going to drive across the United States. I need more energy to do it, but I'm not going to use gasoline. How are you going to get there? Carbohydrates are the body's preferred source of actual fuel at the cell through oxidative phosphorylation through the mitochondria to produce ATP, water, and carbon dioxide. So why would you cut out sugar? Now, of course, paleo people say, well, we could do that because the body can actually convert through gluconeogenesis. It can convert amino acids and fats into sugars and give our body the sugars we need so we can actually cut back on carbohydrates, eat high amounts of sugar, protein, because we're not going to get an insulin response. Well, you are, and that just shows you, in a sense, that they don't understand actually the foods you're eating, because if you eat too much protein without a carbohydrate, you actually get an insulin response in the body. You actually get a huge insulin response. At the same time, gluconeogenesis is, yes, something that the body does, but it's an adaptation to not having enough glycogen stored in the liver or enough carbohydrates coming in the body. Because if you didn't have this, you would die. You'd go into a coma. The body needs to be able to have sugar, in a sense, for the cell if you're not supplying it. So in a sense, if you think about it, we can say gluconeogenesis is actually the body's catabolic response, breaking down muscle tissue, breaking down the body, demineralizing bone to actually provide the cells with sugar. This is not how the body works. This is my opinion. This is not how the body works. This is an adaptation response to having low glycogen stores in the liver. So I don't agree with it. Now, at the same time, you have oligosaccharides, which are usually in plant sources like bananas. Now, as I mentioned, most carbs, or all carbs, are actually broken down in the body to glucose to provide energy for the body, to provide energy for the cell. That's why we need carbohydrates. You need carbs, proteins, fats with every meal. You know, sometimes you're getting an egg or meat and there's fat in it too. I'm not saying have coconut oil with every meal, but the bottom line is, you need this. It's like a shirt, pants, and shoes. You're not going to go out with one of them on or two of them on. You need all three. Same thing with your meals to help regulate cellular physiology. Too much protein with not enough carbs and fat, not good. Too much carbs with not enough protein and fat, not good. Too little protein is just as dangerous as eating too much protein, because the liver needs protein to actually detoxify estrogen. So if you don't eat enough protein or the right types of protein, you actually can become estrogen dominant, because now the body can actually detoxify estrogen. Now, there's a lot of other factors here that we're not talking about, but hopefully you're staying with me on my rants and raves and paying attention to what I'm saying. Now, of course, Mercola and all these other people out there, now, he's built an empire. I can't really dog the guy. He's doing what he does. Do I completely agree with him? No. He used to be a guy that sent out newsletters, educated people. Now you can't even get onto his site without paying money. I mean, I don't know if that's true, but everything is about the dollar. And that's okay. You know, everyone has to run their business. But everyone says fructose is bad. Fructose is bad. Fructose causes high cholesterol. No crap, it does physiologically. Fructose causes this. Fructose causes diabetes. Fructose causes heart disease. Fructose causes high triglycerides. How are you going to cut fructose out of your diet? The funny thing is, if you research this, a developing embryo, before it becomes a fetus, you know what its primary source of fuel is? That it takes from the mother? That's if she's even getting it, and she has stored glycogen in her liver. It's fructose. So how the hell could fructose be bad for us? A living little embryo needs it as its primary source of fuel. So maybe we can see why there's so many problems in our society today. And of course, there's other issues. I'm not saying it's just fructose. But don't you think fructose is getting a bad rap? Now, I'm not talking about drinking soda. I'm not talking about eating Pop-Tarts. And I'm not talking about high fructose corn syrup. I'm a health professional. I'm talking about health food. So don't misinterpret this and come from your belief system of dysfunction and interpret it that way, because I'm talking about health. I'm talking about food. That's what I do. Why would I be talking about Pop-Tarts, Twinkies, and Coke and advocating that? It really doesn't even make any bit of sense, to be honest with you. But at the same time, we have to look at these people and say, well, Mercola's talking about how fructose is bad. We have to look at the research. They never really get specific to say where the tests are coming from, what types of foods are actually testing. And if you really research it, they're testing Pop-Tarts, Twinkies, Cokes, and all these processed foods, Fruit Loops, that have so many other GMO products in them, different types of dyes, and they're loaded with unsaturated fats like sunflower oil, safflower oil, vegetable oils. Right there, they should be pointing at those versus the sugar and everything else. Those are even more toxic to the body than anything else that's in there. And at the same time, they're scaring people. They're scaring people without educating them. And that's a problem. That's a problem because if we look at this, they're scaring people away from the very food that our body needs, and not explaining that we're talking about this type of fructose, we're not talking about this type of fructose. Where's all the research to show that unsaturated fats are actually dangerous? They're showing that sugar's dangerous in these foods when these foods are loaded with unsaturated fats. And if you look at this, the funny thing is, unsaturated fats damage the beta cells of the pancreas, which can lead to diabetes and insulin resistance, which they say sugar does. Can actually cause permeability in the cell and cause swelling, cell division, and shock, which they say sugar does. It actually causes downregulation of thyroid hormone in the liver because it blocks sugar from getting in the cell, and at the same time, so now your cells can't utilize glucose. They prefer fat for energy. You get a downregulation of energy production, and you get a downregulation of T4 to T3 production in the liver because you don't have enough glucose. So you see immunosuppression, digestive issues. You see inhibition of glucose oxidation, altered cellular respiration. So P.J. Randall showed these are all the hallmark signs of what unsaturated fats do to the cell, which cause diabetes. And the funny thing is, they're saying it's sugar. Now keep in mind, I'm not saying go pound sugar. I'm just showing you the differences. They're saying it's sugar, but if you look at these foods, it's way more unsaturated fats. What if it's the unsaturated fats in these foods, which there's lots of compared to sugar, that's actually causing the diabetes, insulin resistance, immunosuppression, PMS, infertility, weight gain, depression, OCD, whatever it is, and it's really not the sugar? What if we really did some research to see that? And there was, because it was done in the 1800s, it was done in the 1900s, it was done in 1940 by Bernard Say, 1947 by P.J. Randall. It was done by all these people, but at the same time we're ignoring it. I don't know why. Whew! I'm on a rant right now. I want to get one out to you before I go because I'm going to be gone for a couple weeks, so here you go. At the same time, what about glucagon? What about cortisol? What about growth hormone? What about thyroid? What about adrenaline? Because the funny thing is, all these hormones that are actually released in excess during the stress response, which can happen from eating too many refined carbohydrates, not eating the right foods, food frequencies, ratios, skipping meals, fasting, vegetarian, doing paleo, low carbs, it doesn't matter. These are all released. And the funny thing is, all these things increase blood sugar. All these things can lead to osteoporosis, diabetes, muscle wasting. All the things they say that sugar does. But where's the research or where's the testing to test instead of just blood sugar levels? Because think about it, you're stressed, you don't have enough glycogen stores, etc., etc. What your body going to do is gluconeogenesis. It's going to break down muscle tissue. And it's going to actually increase blood glucose levels. So the question is it really the lack of the right types of sugar, carbohydrates in your diet that's causing increased blood sugar, diabetes, insulin resistance? Is it the body's response to try to save you from cortisol, adrenaline, growth hormone, etc. that's actually causing high blood sugar levels? Or is it from eating the sugar? I don't know. I'd say it's from not having the right food frequencies, foods, glycogen stores, not having enough food coming in the body to regulate blood sugar, which is causing the high blood sugar because it's the body's adaptive response, the cortisol, the adrenaline that are breaking down muscle tissue to increase sugar because it's never coming in. So it's going to always go up and go up and go up. That's actually leading to this epidemic of diabetes, insulin resistance, etc. These are just some things you need to think about and question, well, is it really sugar or is it this? Or is it really carbohydrates or is it really this? Is it healthy carbohydrates or is it really not eating the right types of carbohydrates? Back in the 1800s, now this is a long time ago, people like Dr. Budd, Dr. Piori, they actually treated diabetic patients with high amounts of sucrose from fruits. Now they use white sugar, but at the same time we can think of, fruits, the same thing. Sucrose is sucrose. Sucrose comes from the land. It's not bleached. It's actually just colored. It's not bleached. So at the same time, this was the 1800s. So it was far away, but why was it working back then and not now? Maybe it's a lot of the unsaturated fats in our diet that's actually inhibiting cellular respiration, affecting our mitochondria, pushing our body towards lipid oxidation and inhibiting glucose oxidation, inhibiting how our cells use sugar, damaging the beta cells of the pancreas, leading to insensitivity, leading to high blood sugar levels. Now, I'm not saying you can't get it from eating Pop-Tarts, Twinkies, pizza, and all this stuff. I'm just saying people aren't getting the right types of carbohydrates, and all these foods are loaded with unsaturated fats, which can easily cause diabetes. It was shown in 1940 by Bernard Say, Nobel Prize winner, that sucrose and coconut oil were actually protective to the pancreas, protective to diabetes because they actually have been shown to heal the beta cells of the pancreas. This was 1940, and we're still trying to figure it out, by the way. It was also shown by P.J. Randall in the 1940s that there's an antagonism between unsaturated fats and glucose assimilation. And what that means is, anytime we're stressed and we use fat for energy, we have free fatty acids that are released into the blood, basically because we're breaking ourselves down. Well, free fatty acids, these fatty acids have an antagonistic kind of relationship with glucose or sugar by the cell. So free fatty acids, when we're stressed, as I just mentioned, they block glucose oxidation. So they block how our cells use energy, all through cellular respiration. They inhibit how our mitochondria actually produces steroidal hormones, how it uses cholesterol, how it uses oxygen. So now we have a respiratory defect and we're not producing carbon dioxide, we're actually producing lactic acid. It actually increases lipid peroxidation, decreases carbon dioxide production and energy production at the cell level. And at the same time, estrogen can do the same thing because anytime you're stressed, insulin goes up, estrogen goes up. Now, of course, a lot of the foods people are eating are estrogenic. We have environmental estrogens, birth control pills, all these different things we're producing in our bodies, in our fat cells, and we're not able to detoxify it because of our diets. So all these things can actually affect cellular respiration. Now, glucose assimilation, glucose in itself at the cell level, now I'm not saying go eat starch and start eating pizza, which is glucose. I'm saying use fruits, which are sucrose, fructose and glucose. Glucose actually does the opposite of what I just explained. It actually feeds the cell. It increases oxidative phosphorylation. It increases how the mitochondria work. It increases carbon dioxide production. It increases the use of thyroid. It actually helps to convert cholesterol into pregnenolone because now you have thyroid production. It actually allows your cells to use glucose to increase overall energy production. So he showed the antagonism of these back in the 1940s, and we're still trying to figure it out. People that have diabetes, the bottom line is they're in a stress state. They're in a hypometabolic state. What does that mean? The body favors lipid oxidation. It actually favors fat over sugar at the cell level to produce energy. This damages the mitochondria. The lower your metabolic rate, the more your body relies on fat for energy, which is not our primary source of energy. It's actually very inefficient because we use more resources. We use 3 times more oxygen at the cell level to produce less energy, where if we had glucose, we wouldn't use as much of our resources to produce even more energy. At the same time, our body relies on mobilizing free fatty acids, which I talked about, how they alter cellular respiration. They block sugar from getting in the cell. They decrease energy production. They decrease thyroid production. They increase cholesterol, leading to most of the diseases in people that have complaints in our society. Just look out the window. That's what we see every day. Now, let's get to fructose because we're talking about fruits. Fructose increases uric acid in the body. Uric acid is one of our major antioxidants. So if we eat the right foods, we produce it. It actually is a major antioxidant with cholesterol and glutathione, so you don't have to take these expensive antioxidants. At the same time, fructose is really important for intrauterine fluids and seminal fluids. It's important for the developing embryo and developing fetus during pregnancy and the mother. It's their primary source of fuel. It actually helps to produce cholesterol and steroidal hormones, so how could these fructose from these foods actually be dangerous? Now, yes, they're not specifying that, but when they do the research and scare you, they need to say, well, we're talking about this fructose, not fruits and veggies. Because people want to give up fruits and veggies. And it's not working. Look at our society. It's not working. Ray P talks about, and this is an exact quote I'll read to you, one of the points at which fatty acids suppress the use of glucose is at the point at which it is converted into fructose in the process of glycolysis. When fructose is available, it can bypass this barrier to the use of glucose and continue to provide pyruvic acid for continuing oxidative metabolism. The bottom line is, if you're inflamed, you're releasing free fatty acids. All these things suppress glucose oxidation in the cell. So they don't let glucose get in the cell, which can lead to high blood glucose levels, all these things I talked about. Well, it's been shown if you have fruits or veggies with sucrose, glucose will get blocked, but fructose can actually bypass this glucose inhibition, get in the cell, feed pyruvate and feed oxidative phosphorylation, and increase energy production at the cell level. Boom! I think that's huge. And we have all these people, diabetics, running away from carbohydrates. I don't know about you. I work with a lot of diabetics. I work with a lot of people that have infertility. I work with a lot of people who have autoimmune disease, on and on and on. And I recommend fruits, of course, with proteins and fats and root vegetables, and these people are healing with no supplements. So for me, that's the evidence I need. At the same time, Ray P talks about how fructose inhibits the stimulation of insulin by glucose. This means that eating ordinary, I'm quoting him, table sugar, we could say sucrose or fruits, which is a disaccharide, glucose or fructose, in the place of starch, pizza, Pop-Tarts, even potatoes, things like that, breads, rice, will reduce the tendency to store fat. Fructose inhibits the stimulation of insulin by glucose. Glucose raises insulin, fructose inhibits insulin. So if you have sucrose in fruits, you get kind of a yin and yang relationship. Glucose increases insulin, while fructose helps to bring it down. It's like this yin-yang relationship to help balance and regulate physiology. So do diabetics need fruit? Hell yes, they need fruit. Of course, with the right types of proteins and fats. At the same time, when liver glycogen stores are low, typically you get a cold hands and feet, you get a cold nose when you're hungry, you get hangry because you don't have enough glycogen stores, so anytime you're hungry, you get really angry and irritable. When glycogen stores are not full, we eat glucose with a little bit of fructose. If we eat glucose with a little bit of fructose, which is fruit, sucrose, or beets, or root vegetables, the liver glycogen stores are actually replenished, and carbs are burned for energy in the Krebs cycle. So we actually start producing energy. That's if we don't have liver glycogen and we eat glucose with a little bit of fructose. That's why I always tell people, anytime you have a root vegetable or squashes that are starchy, always have fruits with your roots. So you can get the fructose to actually help stimulate energy production and downregulate insulin production. The small amount of fructose improves the liver's ability to phosphorylate glucose, which enhances liver glycogen stores. So at the same time, the fructose and the glucose in these fruits actually help to regulate and teach your liver how to store glycogen, which is huge. So over time, you don't have to eat as frequent. You don't have to eat as often, per se. You can change your ratios. You're not going to get hangry. You're not going to get a stress response. You're not going to get an adrenaline response because the body's working exactly how it should because you have the reserves in your liver that you need. And you don't need cortisol to make this happen like people who eat a high-protein diet. Pure glucose alone, starches, potatoes, all these foods, of course, will cause a quick rise in blood sugar from the pancreas in itself because we release insulin. If there's too much circulating insulin already, which is common if we eat these foods and we don't have the right types of carbs, blood sugar levels will drop. The simple sugars that are found in fruits take longer to convert, which is a key factor for regulating blood sugar. So if you want to start incorporating these into your diet to help regulate blood sugar, have fruits, tropical fruits, ripened fruits with the foods that you're already eating. So the bottom line is, after a lot of my ranting and raving, I appreciate you tuning in. This is a long YouTube. Fruits, for us, beside root vegetables, are optimal carbohydrates to regulate cellular metabolism, increase all the antioxidants in our body, and provide our body with the necessary fuel so we can actually down-regulate the stress response. So, with that, I'm out of here. I'm taking a 2-week, 1.5, 2 weeks internet detoxification. Hope you like my ranting and raving. Hope you like my YouTube. I love you all. I'm just passionate about this, and that's about it.